Race to Roby Creek, the toughest half marathon in the Northwest. So they say. 1:21:19, good for 5th overall. I dropped nearly 4 minutes off of my time from last year. In this video, I'm gonna talk about what I did to get to that point, or perhaps more accurately, what I didn't do. Yes, my channel is called Humble Running, but I do believe in celebrating our accomplishments, however big or small. When you have that day, doesn't necessarily have to be trail racing or half road, half trail racing, as the case may be here. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with celebrating that. We can be humble and still enjoy the work that we put in and celebrate the results and our achievements, however you frame those, and also however you define them for yourself. So besides kind of taking a look at my performance and probably more so my training going into that race, I'm also gonna talk about a few things, bit of race dynamics, talk about how that went down, kind of blow by blow. I don't have race video. Of course, I'll also talk about the gear that I used for the race. This is a half marathon, more road style than trail style, so less gear, but I'll also talk about the shoes, which I did do a full video on when I was choosing. I went with a PUMA DV8 Nitro Elite Trail over a road super shoe. Also talk about fueling and hydration. But before I get into all of that, quick recap. I've covered this in some other videos about the race and the course itself. It's a half marathon starting in Boise, pretty close to downtown. You start winding up a paved road up the hill, and then you hit Rocky Canyon Road, of course over the Aldape Summit, over the backside, which is still dirt, into the finish. The last 1.2 miles is on pavement again, but the majority of the course, 8.7 miles, is on dirt. This is kind of like your typical forest road, dirt road, not one of those mountain ones, so it's pretty smooth if you drive on it. Not one of those crazy rocky ones that you get different places around here. Stats wise, I got 2139 feet of elevation gain and 1762 feet down. It's a point-to-point race and ending up a little bit higher than where you started down in town. So let's talk about the race first. The race started out pretty hot as usual. The weather was great this year. This is my second time running it. I ran it last year also in good conditions, so I kind of knew what to expect. I knew the guy that won last year. I actually chatted with him a bit before the race. Last year, that wasn't the case. I think I might have gone out a little too hot last year. This year I knew, okay, this guy's gonna fly. Probably a few of the other guys up front are gonna fly. I definitely held myself back in the beginning. Wanted to stay more in control. The first 3.1 miles heading up to Rocky Canyon Road. That's on the road. You don't want to kind of burn out too early. I think that climb is like 5 miles or something to the top of the summit. So if you burn yourself out in the first, say, 5K coming out of the town, it could be a bad time towards the end of that climb, and even a bad time on the way back down the other side. So coming out of town, I was around kind of floating between 7th, 8th, 9th, kind of hanging steady. I feel like I was in 6th last year, and based on who was at the race, you know, I know a lot of the people running and kind of how I was going. I was kind of like, okay, this is where I'm gonna be. Let's see how it goes. Try to run a little steadier this time around and maybe not kind of drag so much at the top of the climb as I probably did last year. I was not checking my pace or anything like that. I had splits, of course, from last, or I should say, I could have checked splits. I believe I knew what I was to the top. Honestly, I couldn't even tell you right now from the previous year. I knew by the time I got to the summit that I was ahead of my pace by, I don't know, somewhere between 1 and 2 minutes at the summit before, you know, the final descent there. But other than that, throughout the race, I didn't really, you know, I had no pace splits, didn't really gauge anything. So I went over the top. By that point, I had kind of gotten away from the guys that were with me. I believe I was in 6th or probably 7th. I was running behind Joshua McAdams for most of that way there. I'll talk about him later. Came down the descent and just, I mean, I tried as much as possible to let it go. In my training, I have done a few specific downhill sessions. I'll talk about everything that I did in a sec here, but I felt like I could really pound the downhills better than I had done last year. So I pretty much bombed that way down. One guy who started out really hot, his legs were toast. So I picked up one spot there as he was kind of having a rough time. I had heard that guy had actually just run a sub 4 minute mile relatively recently, so he was no slouch. There was another guy that I kind of gradually reeled in. I think he was a bit of a younger guy, and after I passed him on the descent, he tried to kind of speed up and get ahead of me again. That was probably a mistake on his part. Like, I don't want to analyze anybody's race, but I think he tried to kind of get it back right away instead of trying to maybe lock into me or whatever. So I gradually pulled away from him. Josh was a bit ahead of me. At that point, I'm 5th, he's 4th. We're coming down to the finish, and about 2 miles, 1 mile to go. It's about 1.2 miles on pavement to get to the finish. So I was kind of gradually coming up on Josh, and I knew he had crushed me in a 50K. I don't know if it was last year, I think it was the year before, local 50K. And I knew he was pretty much an awesome runner, and he ran steeplechase in the 2008 Olympics. So a lot of the way up the hill, I was kind of close to him, and he's got the Olympic rings, you know, on his shoulder. He was wearing a singlet, so I was kind of like watching those Olympic rings the whole race. But anyway, so coming through to the finish, I'm like, okay, I know he's gonna outkick me. I have no chance if I leave this for the end. So about 3/4 mile to go, I was gradually reeling him in. And as I came up to him, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go hard past him, push a little bit. You know, it's gonna be risky, but that's what I did. So I went by him, gapped him a bit. I never turn around. I tell all the kids I coach in track, do not turn around. So I didn't know, I think I might have gotten maybe 10 feet or so, had a little bit of a gap. You know, I started feeling the burn. Obviously, there's like a half mile to go at that point. And he then gradually started reeling me in. I think he got me with like maybe a 1/4 mile to go. And at that point I knew, all right, that was my last match. I gave it a shot, you know, and he got ahead of me by very close, 5 feet or so. And at that point I knew, okay, I'm not gonna sprint past him at the line. So I ran as hard as I could the rest of the way to the finish. He got me by 3 seconds, but you know, no shame in losing to him, that's for sure. Well, I am moving along a little quick here. This is my second run in the VJ Ultra 3. Just put out a video. I'm going around low 7 minute per mile pace here and talking throughout. I think this is a nice shoe. Smooth riding. I'm going pretty quick here, and I'm trying not to so I could film this video here. So yeah, that was that. 5th overall. I mean, I was astonished by the time that I ran. 4 full minutes off of last year. The weather was slightly better. You know, no moisture. I mean, it was a little wet on the backside, but no kind of bad mud or anything. It was probably maybe 10 degrees cooler. Last year was in the 70s, this year in the 60s. I'm kind of less affected by the heat, and especially since it's not that hot, I didn't really think about that at all. So as far as shoe choice, the Pumas, I mean, I think they were great. I mean, but I wore Vaporflies last year, Next Percent 2, and those are 7.5 ounces. And the Pumas that I ran this time around, you know, it's a super shoe, but it's a trail shoe at the end of the day. They're 9.5 ounces. So I ran 4 minutes faster in a 2 ounce heavier shoe. So that shoe was just fantastically fast. I did have an issue though, that Achilles collar that I did have some concern about. I did get a blister on my Achilles. Now, I did not notice this at all during the race. Didn't even feel it. But kind of walking around after the race, I started to notice kind of the irritation. And this is on my left Achilles. And yeah, I definitely had a good blister there. So if you have concern in that Achilles area with that shoe, I mean, it's definitely warranted. It's just higher than it needs to be. I don't know why they have that collar that high, but it is what it is. I got through the race. You know, part of that irritation, it could be due to the fact that the descent was so steep and so fast. Maybe that was kind of causing it to dig in a little more on kind of more level trails, or even at least moderate. I'm not sure at this point if I would get the same problem. As far as stats for that final descent, coming off the top, 3.4 miles coming down dirt, total of -8%. And I ran that 3.4 miles at 4:57 pace at a heart rate of 182. So after that 3.4 hit the final stretch of pavement, that's 1.2 miles, a little shallower, still minus 3.5. And I ran that at 5:11 per mile at 186 heart rate, which is, I'm going downhill for that, let's say 4.6 miles. What does that average out to? I don't know, 184 heart rate. That's definitely above my threshold. You know, kind of running that high heart rate going downhill is hard. It's hard to keep your heart rate high. So I was really pushing. And I think that's due to the fact that I was chasing Josh. I had passed those other two guys kind of higher up. So having that kind of competition in there, that kind of pushes you to kind of stay engaged throughout. That was kind of a factor that I didn't have last year. I finished 6th last year, but I was kind of in a spot where nobody's really in front of me, nobody pushing me from behind. So there was no like kind of race pressure or, pressure for position. In this race, actually, the guy in 3rd, he wasn't too far. Like I could see him. So there was always that thought like, okay, if anything happens to him or he tires out or fades, there was always that kind of thought that I could really sneak onto the podium. So, beyond training, beyond shoes, fueling, hydration, all that, just having the contact of racing with people around you, that definitely pushes you to go faster. Even if you're not front of the pack or whatever, wherever you're at within the race, if you're competing against whoever's around you, it pushes you, and it's good. It can push you to, run 186 heart rate at the end of the race when, if no one was around and I wasn't really kind of battling out there, I definitely would not have been at that high of an effort. So just to quickly cover fueling and hydration, again, this is a half marathon, an hour 21. It's hard, but it's different even than a full marathon, and certainly different than kind of, the extended ultras that I'm normally doing. I don't normally race like this fast, this hard. So I took 2 SIS beta gels, 80 grams of carb, and I had a Morton 320 mix. I heard they came out with a mix that dissolved easier. That's always a big problem with their stuff. So I was like, okay, I've been testing this other kind of high carb stuff. I was like, I need to try that. I carried a Solomon salt flask in my Instinct belt. So I had those 2 gels, and then I carried 8 ounces of the Morton 320, which is whatever it was, half, and I think that's 80. So that would give me 40 grams. So that would give me 120 grams of carbs for an hour 21. I think that's, I don't know, these days, it's not crazy high, but it's not a little. Aside from, you know, I didn't plan my paces or splits or anything from last year, but I did kind of check the activity in Training Peaks when I was putting together my PUMA ASU Vaporfly comparison, just to kind of spec out the course for that video. And I did make a note that I took 1 precision gel last race, and I made a note that I probably could have used 1 more. I've definitely been doing more high carb going into this one. So taking 2 40-gram gels, whereas last year I took 1 30-gram gels, it was not an issue for me at all to take down 120 grams of carbs in this race. Which is, you know, that could also be a factor in kind of my better performance for sure. I mean, we gotta be taking more carbs and more fuel. The hydration, you know, the 8 ounces, I grabbed a couple of cups along the way, but at that effort level, it's hard to really, especially going up and especially going down, I can't drink out of a cup running 5-minute pace at -8%. It's like nearly impossible. I might have taken, I don't know, 12 ounces total, maybe 16, if I kind of got a few extra gulps in. But really, you know, for an hour and 20, the hydration is less of an issue, given that it was only in the 70s. You know, if it was 70s for a marathon, that's different, or if it was 90s or 100 for this half marathon, it would be different. But in this case, I was really less concerned about hydration. So going back to training, I'm gonna start off and just read off my miles in the 10 weeks going backwards from the race. I've got 63, 65, 68, 44. That was spring break. We were on a trip. 50, 53, 66, 46, 63, 44. An average of 56 miles per week in the 10 weeks leading up to the race. So clearly, high mileage wasn't a thing for me. I mean, I talked about this in my Wilson Creek race video. You know, after that race, at the end of the video, I went and I had to go coach 2 basketball games directly from the race. And that's kind of how it's been from the fall. Outside of running, you know, my daughter's school stuff, it's probably been this YouTube stuff, of course. It's been the busiest non-running time for me, definitely over the past few years. That's aside from everything else, house project, you know, whatever. I mean, I went from coaching elementary girls basketball 4 days a week, including games, through the fall, straight into AAU ball, 2 teams, 6th grade team, my daughter's team also, and then I added on elementary track, which we just had our city championships this Monday, a couple days ago, and that's a week and a half after Roby Creek. So I've just been like nonstop doing this stuff, working on this Humble Running channel. In the meantime, I just have not had the time to put in the volume or the miles, yet I don't know, I had a better performance. This is kind of like, what do I make of this? I'm doing this talk right now. I came up with 3 index cards just to have the stats, and I made notes of what I did. I'm doing this on the run because this is the time that I have, making the most of it here. And this would probably be easier if I was sitting at a desk somewhere, but I'll go through a couple of notes that I did jot down about my training. Now I'm looking at really the 10 weeks prior to this race. I did no long runs. I did 1 2-hour run in the 10 weeks leading up to the race. And this was kind of like, you know, this is through winter. It's kind of off season, you know. I did race that. That's probably not counting that race, which was 20 miles actually. So maybe I did run 2 hours. That was the longest I did, that race, whatever that was. Okay, what else? I have been keeping up with my speed work though, and I'll kind of explain that. I've been doing these short interval stacks. I find that's something that works for me. It's kind of, you do sections of 8-minute intervals, but you do 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. So within an 8-minute block, you're running 4 minutes, and then you get, you know, 30 seconds off in between each kind of micro rep or whatever. I just really like this. I do them all on the treadmill. It's just easy. I press the button, get going, ramp up, get the 30 seconds. I have a timer on my watch for the intervals, recoveries. It goes by. I just think you can get a lot of high power work in, but your heart rate keeps dipping down as you rest every 30 seconds. I mean, with the ramp up and ramp down, it's more like 15 or 20 seconds of rest. It keeps your heart rate from getting crazy, and you're running kind of high power. I use a stride pod. So I did those pretty regularly. I did 8 of those sessions in the 10 weeks. And I also did some kind of, towards the end, I kind of mixed in some longer hill sessions, like 5 times, 5 or 6 minutes. A few of those on the treadmill. I think I went 3 times. I found a nice long road. And those times I did that on the treadmill, I was running at 20%. So those are probably the hardest work I did, those longer intervals. And that's something I find, I'm gonna walk here while I talk about this. I have a few minutes here. So I find that doing those like mid-range 5 to 6 minute intervals, those can be really taxing, really hard efforts mentally and physically. So that's where those short interval stacks kind of come into play. I can get that high power, but I don't have to do those like very hard taxing efforts every single week. So in 10 weeks, I did say 5 very hard hill interval workouts. I did 0 speed work, you know, aside from those short interval stacks. Steven Seiler, by the way, he's got some YouTube videos on that. Look that up. He explains everything. A couple years ago, I saw those and I was like, ooh, this sounds good to me. And I found that it does work for me. But aside from that, I did 1 week, I think I missed, or I couldn't get on the treadmill or something. I had to go outside, you know, with my schedule or whatever was going on. And I did, I think, 20 times 1 minute. I figure since I'm outside, it's kind of hard to do that 30 seconds on off outside with the terrain changes and all that kind of stuff. It just becomes tricky. When you're on the treadmill, it's very easy, and you can see kind of from session to session how your improvement goes, and you can keep everything pretty level. If you're doing that outside, unless you're definitely doing it on a flat surface, it's just harder to control your pace outside. I definitely prefer doing that on the treadmill, and I don't mind doing speed work on treadmills. I think it's easier on the body at this stage. I am not young, by the way. So that was my speed work. Other than that, you know, that one race, 1 2-hour run, those kind of faster / hill sessions, and then everything else was, I tend to do a lot of runs in the hour 15 to hour 45 minute range. That just seems to be a spot where I could just, especially as I'm doing the shoe testing and trying different stuff and shooting, I just end up doing a lot of runs in that range. And one thing I did was I made sure I was taking in fueling during those runs. And that was a huge component. I am fueling more than I ever have, and that helps with recovery. Like if I go out and do an hour and a half, hour 45 run, and I take, I don't know what, I don't necessarily scientifically track it, but say 70 to 80 grams of carbs per hour on a normal run, which is, you know, not what I was doing even just a couple of years ago, I feel fresh, I feel fine. I could just do, say, an hour and a half run up and down, you know, with good vert around here and be fine. Other than that, I did mix in some treadmill vert runs. And that's something I know my climbing is kind of weak. I'm an East Coast guy. I grew up in New Jersey. I didn't start trail running until later in life, or running in general. And it was in New Jersey, so we just don't have these long kind of climbs and stuff as we do out here. So in my first years of trail running out here, always getting beat up on the climbs, always getting kind of run away from. So I'd mix in these kind of vert sessions. I would do, say, just short. Like I would do these at night, like 9, 10 o'clock at night after my daughter goes to bed. I just have a little bit of time. I'll do, I looked at the times, for some reason, be around 23 minutes, a lot of them, at 20%. Just ramp it up, run, say, 15 to 20 minutes at 20%, and that was it. And then I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna try to like do that. And then my weekly vert, it kind of adds up. If you do 20% for 20 minutes, say 5 days, I was trying to do it like every single day for a while, kind of like couldn't keep it up. But say 5 days a week, that does add up. Gotta check the time here. Okay, I'm good. That adds up. Those kind of like quick vert things. And that was essentially it. That has been my training for 10 weeks. I mean, I don't know how to explain more than that. It's probably just a combination of those little things. Strength work. What did I write down here? You're thinking this is gonna be the big secret here, but what did I do? 3 times strength over 10 weeks, leg work. I definitely want to do more than that, but just with the schedule and the coaching mainly that I've been doing, just haven't done it. So I can't point to strength work as a secret. I think that about covers what I did going to this race. I mean, I've been wanting to talk more about training on the channel more than just the reviews and stuff. People have asked me about it. It's just been, it's kind of been off season for a little while. This is even a pretty early season race. Just been busy, like I said. The track just ended. I've essentially been coaching in one shape or form since like October, nonstop. It's just hard to fit everything in. Now, track is over at the moment. You know, I definitely have longer races. My next thing, well, 2 days, 3 days, I'll be running Heaven's Gate, 19 miles, 7,600 feet of vert. I have not been able to get as much vert in as I'd like ahead of that race, but I am obviously feeling fit. So I'll see how that goes. Should be similar conditions as last year. So again, it'll be a good gauge to see a comparison of where I'm at year over year. Beyond that, June, July, I've got back-to-back 100Ks here in Idaho. You know, I don't think those weekly mileage numbers are gonna cut it for those races. So track just ended, track coaching for me, not me running track. But I think I'll have some time to kind of ramp it up a little. It's May already, you know, I think I've got a bit of a later start. So we'll see. I mean, I don't have a specific plan at this point. I'm just gonna kind of see how I'm feeling. And then I guess maybe after the next race, I'll give another recap of what I ended up doing. If you like hearing about this type of stuff, how I'm actually running, how I'm racing, what kind of training I'm doing, these are topics I like to talk about. I don't know if they're topics that people really like to hear about, but if you do, I would appreciate hearing so. You know, leave the comments down there and encourage me to do this kind of video if you did enjoy it. So thank you for watching. Hope you've got some fun races coming up, as I do, and good luck. We'll talk more about racing and training during the rest of the season. Okay, so that was crazy. I just ran 52 minutes. I've got exactly 1 hour to get everything in. I ran 52 minutes talking nonstop. I got 5 minutes to do a little outro here. I have started doing some affiliate links. So if you go to my Humble Running Substack page, I'll list them there. If I come across anything interesting, discount codes, you know, I'm just gonna post everything there. If you click through those links, it doesn't cost you anything. It does help out the channel, helps me. Maybe at some point I'll have to like purchase some things for review that I can't get a hold of, things like that. It will definitely help me out. And again, it doesn't cost you anything. I have a bunch of disclaimers on that support page. I do not do paid product placements, reviews for hire, like some sites could be a little fishy. I don't do any of that. Completely independent, unbiased. I appreciate, I think from seeing in the comments that a lot of you trust me with these reviews and stuff like that. So that's a very important factor. Again, I'll put some of those links down in the description. Also, always check out my support page on my Humble Running Community Substack. Subscribe there. I do a bi-weekly newsletter on there. I'm not trying to spam anybody with extra stuff. Just kind of keep everybody up to date with what's going on. In case you miss anything, I kind of like jump around doing different stuff. So again, appreciate the feedback, appreciate the comments, appreciate the support. And I would appreciate, you know, if you're gonna buy something, click through the links, it helps me out. So thank you very much.